Good afternoon on a Thursday afternoon. This is a very special edition. Welcome once again. We've missed you, Leon. How are you?
Doing all right. How are you guys? Been a
Not too
while.
bad. We've missed having you. Hopefully, we can do more of these soon. All right. So today's Cat Space special with Buckets, myself, and Leon. We have decided to present a very important podcast to you, to the Australian public. Now, the title of this podcast is called Branch Stacking Scandal. What is branch stacking? I'll tell you what. Branch stacking is a tool used by political factions to vote or influence which party member would be used in a pre-selection or to influence policy within government. Branch stacking is defined by paying the fees of political members, conditional voting, providing false information, paying for concessional fees to a person who is uneligible for them, or registering signatures from dead voters, or offering younger or less powerful members incentives if they vote a particular way. Branch stacking is technically illegal as it is regulated by the political parties or factions alone. However, it is legal if fraudulent information is illegal if fraudulent information is submitted fraudulently to the Australian Electoral Commission, which would be deemed illegal.
Yes. So if you branch stacking is technically legal, okay, but if you submit false information to ICAC or IBAC for that matter, it becomes fraud, which then in turn becomes illegal. Okay. It's kind of one of those weird things that we should be making illegal, but for some reason it's not. And I think it's just because the political parties themselves deal with it themselves. But that's how it is.
So you're actually saying good point. First question we're throwing is to the viewers and to the subscribers and to us. Why is branch stacking so dangerous? Like, why is it so dangerous? Balls in your court, Leon. Go for it.
The reason why it's so dangerous, it could influence a result in a specific seat. So it's say if it's a hotly contested seat, branch stacking could really influence which way a person votes or a swing voter goes. That's why it's dangerous. If people need to pick a party based on what they believe that party offers best. So that's the reason why. That's one of the major reasons why this branch stacking stuff, even though it's legal, it shouldn't be, because it influences one person's way of voting. And also, you did mention at the start about dead people voting. That's actually known. There's a term for this. It's actually called cemetery voting, or using the names of dead people to vote in the party pre-selection. That's another form of branch stacking there.
Now, the sources that I have researched on, you're looking at ABC and The Ages, I think .net.au or .com.au. So this is where all the information comes from. What do you think? Why branch stacking is dangerous?
Well, it's like, well, if it's actually quite funny because Dan Andrews got in trouble for this, right? So if I'm Dan Andrews and I basically say, okay, I'll tell you what, if you vote for me to be the premier, okay, I'll make you a deputy leader. And then he could say that to pretty much all the members, right, in his cabinet or in a cabinet for whatever. He goes, I'll make you a deputy leader. 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 And if he does that to pretty much everyone, okay, they're all going to vote for him because they think they're going to get something out of it if basically he's voted in. So it kind of corrupts the system of government because they will really only vote not for his leadership capabilities, but rather that they get something out of the pie. And that's where it's basically corruption kind of thing. So I won't vote for you unless I get something. It's
the thing is, right, you're mentioning Victoria at the moment. Now, technically, right, it is branch stacking is actually against Labor Party rules, according to the Anti-Corruption Commission. So yeah, so just branch stacking in the Labor Party is this is an example, right? And it gets caught, that person has to be terminated from the Labor Party.
Yeah.
So it's actually against Labor Party rules officially.
Yes, that's correct. So both parties, in fact, I'm pretty sure all parties, both major parties anyway, have a policy within themselves to forbid branch stacking. So it's kind of like I said, it's not quite illegal, but they'll deal with it themselves to stop other people getting ahead for doing this bullshit. Excuse my language. But yes, that's what it is.
Next question. Why is Dan Andrews in trouble for branch stacking? I think you answered that, but let's throw it to Leon. Why is Dan Andrews in trouble for branch stacking?
Well, he's still, to be honest, he's still denying that he hasn't done anything wrong, and he has declared that he's always followed the Labor Party rules, despite what would appear to be growing evidence to say otherwise. Right now, Daniel Andrews is just about. I think he's set a new policy in motion just recently. He's just freed Victoria. Basically, they've come out of lockdown, so to speak. But what they have done in the Parliament is they've done a deal here, which does give the Labor Party, gives Dan Andrews the power to circumvent the government when it comes to dealing with the COVID situation and lockdowns and stuff. He will have more power than the Chief Health Officer of Australia. And he can go against the advice of the Chief Health Officer of Australia with his own personal officer. That's dangerous. That kind of power, you cannot have that kind of power. It's just recently started to blow up in Victoria, and there's a lot of people that are really mad about that. The fact that the news services in Victoria right now, they're not talking about this. They're talking about the tennis at the moment. They're talking about how unvaccinated players right now, right? They're not going to be allowed to come to Victoria, or not allowed to go to Victoria to participate in the Australian Open next year.
Interesting. Next question. If Dan Andrews or Labor Minister Luke Donnellan has been accused of branch stacking, does that mean that other members are involved, and could they potentially be witnesses to this?
Yeah, see, that's the thing about branch stacking. You need more than one. You always need more than one, because you have the person who says, hey, I'll make you a deal to do that. But there would always be witnesses around the side to say, okay, fine, I'll vote you in on these conditions. So yes, there would always be more than one witness, except of course if it's the cemetery voting, as you've mentioned, or dead voting, where they've used dead people to push in the vote. There would always be one or two people that would know of branch stacking because they want to get something out of the branch stacking. If it's called to get a new premier, or even a new leader, or even a new treasurer. So that's the things. And it's quite interesting about how it could sway with this, because ICAC could say, right, we know that you've branch stacked with Mr. Dan Andrews, okay? So you either become a witness for us, okay, or we charge both of you just like that. And so you will naturally have witnesses, because you think about how many people knew about it. There was the ministers themselves that knew about it. There's also the staff that also knew about it. There's a lot of witnesses. Branch stacking just can't happen by one person alone. There's a lot of people down the line that would know about it, kind of thing. So
what do you think, Leon?
Well, just recently, the Labor Party in Victoria, this is Dan Andrews' government, just lost their fourth member because of this current investigation. Now, that was the most recent. Just having a look down the list here. Obviously, we had Luke Donnellan, which is one of those ones that he quit just recently. Anthony Byrne, I believe he was one of them. Adam Somyurek, I think it's Adam Somyurek, I believe that's his name at the moment. That's the third one. and I'm just looking for the fourth one right now, just through my list of information here. But yeah, regardless, it could start bringing a lot of people down real quickly. You know, as you could see with the current Victorian situation, like I said, they just lost their fourth minister, and the situation similar is Australia in New South Wales right now with the Gladys Berejiklian situation. But that's anti-corruption. It's kind of somewhere along the same kind of lines. It's Wagga Wagga's turning out to be a picnic for the Libs at the moment. But anyway, look, that's some similar situation as we got going through at the moment.
I mean, let's throw a comedic twist in this. I mean, I know it's a serious topic, but didn't Sideshow Bob on The Simpsons try to do like a branch stacking episode where he became the man? He used dead voters to get his vote?
That's
yes. At one stage, the Big Bopper voted for Sideshow Bob, and even Snowball.
Yeah, that's right. He used Snowball as a candidate to vote him in.
Yep. That's it. That's an example of cemetery voting right there. He had dead people voting for Sideshow Bob. But there you go. That was one in The Simpsons as well. That's a perfect example of this branch stacking, so to speak.
Exactly.
That's the most blatantly obvious one, but still, and even he admitted it in court. I did it.
Next question. As branch stacking is largely not illegal, should it be made illegal comprehensively?
I think it should. I mean, okay. Like, we like to think that both the Libs or Labor would just take care of it because they don't want this cancer to evolve. I mean, even Paul Keating and Bob Hawke described branch stacking as the biggest cancer in political.
He did too. They did too.
But as much as we have faith in our politicians, or some of us have faith in our politicians,
some of us, not all of us,
to basically sort this out, it can be very easily exploited. Because, I mean, unless there are ministers that are basically like, I'm not going to vote against my own team. I'm not going to betray my own team, which pretty much happens with a lot of political parties anyway. You know, the only reason why you'd want to stop branch stacking if you're actually in the Liberal Party or in the Labor Party is if that was stopping your chances from getting ahead. But if you were always getting if you were getting, the flip side of it is if you're actually getting something out of it, okay, then anyone can be literally corrupted. Anyone can be corrupted over anything. I mean, all I have to be is like Christian Porter and say, I'll give you $1 million if you just stand down and you go back to the back bench, but just don't tell me where you got your donation from, and vote for me in the next election. That's literally all he has to do, or all a minister has to do to stop someone from basically advancing forward if they get some monetary gain. And any member is susceptible for it. So that's why I think they're definitely branch stacking. It shouldn't just be a policy of the club. It should really be a prosecutable crime, and it shouldn't just be what Dan Andrews did, which is just to light up ICAC. Was it IBAC?
But we don't know if he is lying to IBAC at the moment. But even though four of his own members have had to resign, Daniel Andrews is still saying that he has done nothing wrong. So it'd be up to IBAC to say conclusively that he needs to face this investigation. If he doesn't, it's going to look even worse on Daniel Andrews.
Well, my point was, it shouldn't just be, the only way he can actually get in trouble is because he's lied to IBAC. You know, he should legitimately get in trouble because he's broken.
He could go to jail for it.
Broken policy, and and there should be laws in place to stop people from doing branch stacking. And right now, the only law that we really have against branch stacking or punishments of branch stacking is to lie to IBAC or ICAC, and that's it. Other than that, if I become a politician, I can legitimately say, okay, well, if you vote me in as premier, I'll make you treasurer, and you keep it amongst yourselves, and that's how we'll work things, and that's it. And according to the law, that's legally fine. I mean, it's not quite right.
You're thinking of career. You're thinking of career advancements, I suppose, so to speak. There is another example of career advancements, and that was the most recent situation with the LNP back in Canberra a couple of years ago with the Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison situation, where Malcolm Turnbull was offering a career advancements for people if they stood by him, and they said no. And all of a sudden, well, he had to stand aside, and lo and behold, they had that caucus meeting. Scott Morrison stood down. Sorry, not Scott Morrison. Sorry, Malcolm Turnbull stood down because if there was a leadership spill, he would immediately go. And it was down to, I think it was Scott Morrison, Peter Dutton, and Julie Bishop, if I remember this correctly. Julie Bishop got the least amount of votes. She immediately resigned. So it's there. So therefore, that situation became Peter Dutton versus Scott Morrison, and Scott Morrison became Prime Minister. That could be an example. That could be an example of career advancement, so to speak. I was talking about the Malcolm Turnbull situation, which led to his ultimately being removed as the Prime Minister because he was offering career advancements if they stood by him, and they didn't.
Sorry, it's funny you should mention that, because when Julia Bishop was actually interviewed by Denton about a situation where something like that happened, she said, well, yes, I actually was invited to a meeting for career advancements, but what the people that basically didn't take into consideration was that they wanted part of them wanting to go through with this career advancements was that they wanted to get rid of Julia Bishop, and she just stood up and said, yeah, I shouldn't be part of this group, excuse me, but which was a dumb thing to do. You should have just not invited Julia Bishop to this meeting to begin with. She's had a gut full of it before, and other ministers have done it. So yeah, it is. It does happen, but at the moment, there's no real law to basically forbid that per se. But it is highly immoral, and we should be making laws against career advancements. But they handle their own politics, and they stand people down within their own policy. But there's no real, you can't be fined for it. You can't be put in prison for it. The only time when you can be in prison for it is when you lie to IBAC or ICAC and you say there was no career advancements. What are you talking about?
I want to ask an important rando question, which is, I'll throw that to both of you, which is, with everything that is going on now with this branch stacking, my question to both of you is, why is it taking so long to get to the bottom of everything in this country? I understand the whole COVID, the whole pandemic. I get that. But why is everything taking so long to figure this whole mess out? And we're talking from Dan Andrews to the Liberal Party members to Christian Porter to this, to that, to IBAC, to ICAC. Why is everything taking forever? I understand COVID, but can't they just get down to the bottom of the barrel and say, this is the problem, this is what it needs to be fixed, and this is who should stand down, why they should resign, instead of feeding us information on stuff they've already repeatedly said, but not giving enough out there to us going, this is what this is, and this is how we're going to deal with it. Instead, they're just using it to buy the time of us, the Australian public, to vote for them in the end.
Well, what I find, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Kat, is because I was saying that with Gladys Berejiklian, basically she's in trouble over things that happened when she was a treasurer. but they didn't choose to convict her until she was a premier. Why couldn't they convict her when they had evidence on her when she was a treasurer? Then that was years ago. So I do understand that it takes time to gather information and figure out if something went wrong and compile a case, and that's fine. It takes time. All resources takes time to build a case and whatever. But if you've got the evidence staring right at you, and you know that this went down, don't wait like 5 years to prosecute immediately. So that's,
As I said, I understand when it comes down to COVID, but what's with the hush hush secrecy? Like, as Bucket said, it's staring right at them in the eyes and in the face. Get on with it.
The Gladys Berejiklian situation, Gladys Berejiklian should have stood down a year ago. And you're right, this should have happened a year ago, but obviously the pandemic's precluded that from happening. But with all the information that is coming out now with the ICAC investigation into Gladys Berejiklian and also Daryl Maguire, it is so damning right now. People are going to be saying, why didn't you resign last year? Why didn't you resign back in 2018 when this started to snowball? She should have, with all the damning investigations that's going on at the moment, the ICAC investigation, like I said, Gladys Berejiklian should have resigned years ago. She should have resigned before the pandemic. She did.
That's right. She was.
And now it's all coming out in the wash, and everybody is throwing Gladys Berejiklian under the bus. Even her most trusted workers are now throwing her under the bus.
Exactly. Now she had John Barilaro, former deputy prime minister, with her, and he stood down saying mental health reasons. I respect that, but the thing is, what's the hush hush? Why did he really stand down?
Yeah.
And this branch stacking, what's the hush hush secret?
Yeah,
Why wait? Just get on with it.
I find that John Barilaro is really just a bully in disguise. I mean, he wants to play the victim card, but I mean, if you saw what he did to Friendly Geordies, it's like, don't give me this crap about him being the victim. He's not the victim here. He's just playing the victim card to see if it actually works. And I imagine that, going through these proceedings must be really stressful for him, but he dug his own grave. He dug his own hole. He did all this himself. Okay. He did all this himself. So that's why he's doing it. And I think that he should just, and I'm sorry for being sexist, but he should just man up, take what he's actually done, apologize, and resign,
and move on,
and move on. But like I said, it's not technically illegal for what he's done, except if he's committed fraud. And this is why I think it shouldn't just be a party policy problem. It should be a real legal problem, which has a punishment if you commit said crimes.
Next question. According to The Age, veteran MP Luke Donnellan phoned Premier Dan Andrews to resign after a political assassin, Anthony Byrne, revealed Donnellan had put money into a branch stacking kitty. Please explain, Leon.
I'll let you guys explain first, because I'm not that much into Victorian politics. All I know is what I hear. But if that's the truth, if that's correct, then quite frankly, Daniel Andrews should resign, because if he's been called and told to resign and donate X amount of money to you, hopefully he hasn't taken that. Quite frankly, otherwise he would have had to have gone. But he being Daniel Andrews is still standing by his decision to not resign, because he still believes that he's done nothing wrong. And quite frankly, IBAC hasn't called him to face investigation. So IBAC doesn't have enough evidence right now to tell Daniel Andrews to come forward. And if they get enough evidence to call Daniel Andrews to come forward, I bet the day before he gets called, he'll do exactly what Gladys Berejiklian did. Gladys Berejiklian resigned, and then the day later she was named by ICAC.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what will happen, right? If Daniel Andrews mysteriously comes out and resigns, you'll know a day later that he's going to be called buyback.
Interesting.
Well, here's the thing. The way I see it is that if you're given money by anyone and you're setting up a kitty or a maxi saver or something, or
The Dolomite account.
Dolomite account. There we go.
Boy, what a relic name that was back in the 80s.
Yeah,
Dolomite account.
Dolomite, yeah, if you're setting up a Dolomite account for,
Branch stacking.
a branch stacking account.
Yeah, put your money in this account here. It's called the Dolomite account. No one's going to trace it back to kids' accounts.
No, except the fact that you get a free ruler out of it.
A plastic 30-centimeter ruler as well.
Yeah.
I have a question about this. Here's another.
Just hang on a second. So if you're setting up an account, right, and if you're a quote unquote a kitty, with how they basically described it, for branch stacking, that's effectively saying we've set up an account to effectively bribe ministers, to bribe ministers to break the law. We've actually got a trust fund out there to allow us to rig the system whenever we choose so. And I mean, it may be not illegal to set up an account, but it's if you're setting up the means to bribe other ministers via an account, that to me that's a crime. That's basically a crime. That's like setting up an account to bribe politicians, which is pure corruption in its essence. And I'm not sure if there's a law against that as of yet. I'm pretty sure there might be, but if I'm wrong, there should definitely be a law about setting up unknown accounts for the purposes of branch stacking. Absolutely, there should be a crime against that, and if there isn't already, I will be very, very surprised.
Here, have a beer, have a bottle of wine. Here we go. We've got Barry O'Farrell 2.0. Because that's what happened with Barry O'Farrell. He had to resign over a bottle of wine. I think it was like $2,000 bottle of wine, but that's beside the point. It was still a bottle of wine.
That's probably it was a very good bottle of wine. And you know what's funny about that whole thing?
Good vintage. It's good enough to bring down a Premier.
Oh, well, it must have been a really good one. But you know what? I remember it was because my birthday and I was at the Golden Century restaurant, which no longer exists, unfortunately. And I had my, I think it was my 30th birthday. I could be lying because I'm trying to hide my age right now. But
it's all right. You don't look a day over dead.
We'll just go with 30, so you can just figure it out. Anyway, we were having yum cha with my family and my friends, and we saw Barry O'Farrell basically the next day after he stood down from politics from over that nice bottle of wine. And I was joking with my brothers and I say, do you think we should just send him a nice bottle of wine? We'll give him in.
No, you could have sent him a wine glass.
Yeah, that's it.
Here's another
going away present.
Here's another Brando question I have in mind. I mean, forgive me, I might be a bit slow, but I'll do the best I can to say this politely. This whole branch stacking incident. Now, they need to get down to the bottom barrel. But the thing is, let's break it down to if this was a regular company or companies for that matter, who was branch stacking, they would have their company shut down, fined, and maybe imprisoned. Now, politicians who are branch stacking get in trouble, but to me, I feel like it's a slap on the wrist. They don't get stood down, or they don't get fired, or they don't get, walked out of Parliament. It's just they don't get questioned about it. Or whether they do, they don't get into that much trouble. I feel like if this was a company, the company would close, money would get refunded, they'd get imprisonment and a big massive fine. But politicians get away with it because they're politicians.
I just kind of feel that, well, I think the one thing that politicians rely on over everything is reputation. And so whether it's the Liberal Party or the Labor Party or the United Party or other independent parties like the Greens, they all rely on reputation. So for that reason, that is really the only thing, wanting, parties to basically keep it as clean as possible because they don't want to be associated with corruption, right? But I really think that there needs to be a proper law in place to stop this kind of behavior, because if you're going to get a politician that just goes, hey, it's COVID, what are you going to do anyway? We don't even have to show up to politics because all we have to basically, we don't have to show up to Parliament anymore because all we have to do is yell COVID and basically no one shows up. So you really need to have some sort of framework in place to stop this from happening. And it shouldn't just be party held. It should be any person or any member that joins Parliament needs to be told, if you're going to enter these chambers, you must adhere by these rules, or your right,
Basic expulsion.
your right to become a politician is null and void. And
Basic expulsion.
You're right about that. Now, no, I look at it on another angle. The reason why people aren't immediately standing down or getting stood down by their party leaders is because the amount of seats that they have in their respective parliaments right now. So if they've got like a 1-seat majority and one person has to sit down, you're in minority, can't get anything done. That's the reason why you're holding on to power until you are called. So that's the reason. That's, I think, another reason why both premiers, or in this case, federal premiers, or say the Prime Minister / the opposition leader, I'm talking about Scott Morrison / Anthony Albanese, the reason why they're not demanding their own party members in those states to stand down or whatever is because of that, because of the majority that they have in the Parliament right now. I think Scott Morrison's got what, a 2-seat majority or something along those lines. I don't know it exactly, but the reason why they would be hesitant to demand people to stand down, especially if it's federal, is because of that. They lose 1 seat, you only got a 1-seat buffer. You lose 2 seats, you're in minority. If you lose 3 seats, you can't govern.
Yes, that's 100% true. I think you have to.
I think that's the reason you're holding on for dear life until you're absolutely called by IBAC, ICAC, or whatever anti-corruption commission there is in each state.
So you're saying that if they can't basically hold their 73% majority, which is, I think, no, it's not 73. I think you need to have a 75% majority of seats in order
You need to have X amount of seats.
Yeah, I believe it's 75 seats in order to govern. Have a majority or whatever, but if you don't have those extra seats, then legally
you can't govern, and B, the opposition would have the right to go to the Governor General and say they can't govern. They can't govern in their own right because they don't have the numbers. The Governor General would have no choice to agree with that because of the circumstances. It kind of reminds you of the nationalities. Do you remember the nationalities incident? Or was it last year when all of a sudden there was dozens and dozens of politicians who had to resign because they had dual citizenship?
Yes,
you remember that?
Yeah,
that was a cluster and a half. Jeez, it was so ridiculous. It was like, why didn't anybody smarten anyone up to this? It turned out to be, it was an embarrassing, however many months it was, just to clear that nonsense up.
I'm just going to say, before we go on to the next question, I just want to say one more thing about this, is that if they get into trouble, they need to be fined, they need to be expelled from Parliament and lose their pension.
Yes, but
live a quiet life,
entitlement,
get out of politics, lose their pension, and just move on with their lives. That's what I think should happen.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it shouldn't be a situation where, whether it's Gladys, and Gladys right now is really popular. I mean, she might be a disgraced parliamentary person. However,
parliamentarian, is that what you're thinking?
There we go. but she's right now in the eye of the Australian people, she's extremely popular because of the COVID roadmap that she's effectively created. And this is where Perrottet basically needs to do something more popular than she's doing and giving everyone their freedom back. But because she's so popular, they may actually just give her a pension, even after all this ICAC business. So I don't know why they haven't actually just said, well, if you're a disgraced parliamentarian, then we're going to take away your pension as well. So, and the other thing is, yes, I totally agree with you. It's interesting that if Scott Morrison and the Liberal Party have too many ministers being taken down, that could potentially mean that the Labor Party could argue you don't have enough seats in government and then just take over by default, So it would be.
I think that comes about as I think the way that comes about is a motion of no confidence in the. I think it's like a declaration of no confidence or a motion of no confidence. If that was to take place, if I understand it correctly, both parties would have to get together in one massive joint sitting and have a vote that way. That's the only way I could think of, and I think a certain amount. And I think, go on. You tell.
There's another way you could do it. So, if there is a vote of no confidence and one minister moves over to the other side,
you mean across bench?
Across the bench. So if they move across the bench,
across the floor, sorry.
Then that would legitimately decide who becomes the Prime Minister of Australia, and that's all they have to do. They don't even have to vote. They just have to move across the bench. That's all they have to do. And so
there would have to be enough numbers in the opposition camp to actually make that work. Yeah. There has to be a specific number. I don't know the number off the top of my head in order for that to work, but enough people would have to cross the floor just to make that work, as I understand.
Yeah.
Now, next question. If politicians have an account which will ultimately lead to branch stacking, should this be made illegal? Again, I repeat, if politicians have an account which will ultimately lead to branch stacking, should this be made illegal? Your turn. Go.
Definitely, it should be illegal, right? It should be a one account. You can't just have multiple accounts because it's harder to track. I guess in a way it's harder to track because you need to be clean, not dirty, clean. You know what I mean? I don't know whether or not I'm making any sense, but
yeah.
If you have too many accounts, it just becomes too suspicious on you.
And you have to any money that is spent with any politician.
You have to declare it.
You have to declare it, and if you're not declaring it, you've broken the law. And this is why Maguire right now is in a lot of trouble because he didn't declare it, and this is the same reason why Gladys is in trouble, and a lot of other.
That's the reason why Barry O'Farrell resigned as well.
Yeah, exactly, because he didn't declare it, right?
He didn't declare a bottle of wine.
Yeah. So.
Buckets.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Next question. Anthony Byrne has been expelled by his own party for revealing the extent of branch stacking and therefore became a, quote, whistleblower. Should he have been punished?
I don't think he should have been punished. I think he should have been awarded, but because he decided to stand up, even against the ministers within his own party, I don't think he should have punished, because without him, ICAC or IBAC would have never found out about the branch stacking incidents to begin with. So he should be exonerated, to be perfectly honest, rather than kicked out like the trash. And I think, honestly, this is why I think it shouldn't be up to the parties to decide. It should be a law that needs to be put in place. So whistleblowers like him aren't punished when he reveals the corruption of other ministers.
What do you think?
Sorry about that. I was just got a text on my phone. I think, to be honest, Anthony Burns, his career is over because he'll be now known as a Labor rat, and it also, we definitely need people like this. Unfortunately, we do need people like this just to clean out this branch stacking that's going on. It's just continually going on. It's going to be an endless cycle. Obviously Luke Donaldson quit, and he was the aged care minister. Obviously Anthony Byrne, obviously Adam Somurak, that was another domino. It also the situation now, I believe, it could also affect the Minister for Women, which is Gabrielle Williams, and also the Camborne MP Pauline Richards as well, because of the branches in Melbourne's southeast. So that's another two. That's another two we may need to keep an eye on. Gabrielle Williams, who's the Minister for Women, and also the Cranbourne MP Pauline Richards. There's another two of this potential branch stacking situation, and the one person who still hasn't stood down, and that's Daniel Andrews. And like, obviously, as I said, he is still saying that he's done nothing wrong, despite the fact that he's lost four of his ministers, and potentially 5 and 6 could be on the way up.
I agree with the
You can't have that many people you can't have that many people resigning over a scandal without your premier knowing about it.
Yeah,
The premier's got to have known about it.
Exactly. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm the premier. No one told me." Well, you're the head of the office. I mean, aside
You're the head of the state.
Yeah, exactly. You're the head of the state.
Surely you must know.
So, yeah, exactly. And that's where I draw you back to the fact that you can't do branch stacking without more than one person knowing about it, because it would have taken a lot of ministers all the way down, plus staff, that would have known about this stuff. So look, I honestly, Dan Andrews can, ignore, these charges for as long as he can, but
he'll ignore it until he's called, because right now he's about to have some kind of wicked power, evil power. I can call it evil power, because he's about to have more power than the chief health advisor, the Australian chief health advisor. He's about to have more power than him to tell Victorians, if they need to be locked down again, and no one will be able to stop him.
Well, here's the thing.
The only people that are going to be able to stop him is IBAC.
Well, that and the voter when it comes around to
the federal election. So, like, already most of Melbourne pretty much hate Dan Andrews anyway. So whether IBAC get him, or his own ministers get him, or the Australian people get him, his career is effectively toast. So I think it's just he's going through the motions of denial. He's going through the stages of loss.
The 5 stages of grief.
Last question.
Before you go to that, right? You're mentioning he might be in trouble with Daniel Andrews. His Labor's primary vote had actually since the last state election has actually fallen from 43% to 38%. So it's on the nose.
Wow. Yeah.
That is a massive swing against, but that's not a swing. That's not a big enough swing, because what got Daniel Andrews elected last time was the situation in Canberra. That was where the Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison, Peter Dutton situation in Canberra, because the last few weeks of the Victorian election was all based on Canberra. Nobody gave a what about the Victorian politics. Everyone was just focused on Canberra, and that's what cost the LNP the election at the election at the Victorian election, I should say. But they're going to need a bigger swing than that in order to get rid of Daniel Andrews.
Now, the last question is, should we have an ICAC/IBAC independent service on a federal level instead of a state level?
Oh, I think they should have it on a. I think the fact that we have IBAC and ICAC it's actually quite funny because the keyword here is independent, right? But it's almost like they're independent of each other as well, even though
They're independent. Yes, go on.
but they're independent of each other, even though they do exactly the same job. So it's actually quite funny, really. But I think that ICAC really does need to be at a holistic scale where you have maybe both a state level where all the states basically have to adhere to one organization instead of, say, two organization. So I really think IBAC and ICAC really need to merge. And it does also need to be at a federal level as well, because I know that Scott Morrison, he keeps hearing all these things about how everyone hates ICAC investigating Gladys.
Christian Porter.
And Christian.
It should be FBAC, Federal Bureau Against Corruption.
Yeah. So that they're, everyone's hearing, oh yeah, whatever. Everyone loves Gladys, but the government's getting rid of her, and he's going, oh well, I use that as an opportunity not to have an ICAC at a federal level at all, and will please the Australian people by doing that. So no, if you don't have an ICAC at a federal level, then that means once you get to federal politics, that means there's nothing to stop you. Effectively, there's no organization to look into your accounts to make sure that you're doing something corrupt. So that's why it does need to be at a federal level, and it also needs to be the IBAC and ICAC. They need to merge. They need to merge.
IBAC,
every
ICAC,
state needs to have one.
IBAC, ICAC, I give up.
The only thing I want to say about this is I agree with you and Buckets, which is I think we need independent commissions against corruption on a federal level, because having a state level, we're not getting we're being shown tidbits of videos and audio phone calls. On a federal level, we hear everything, we see everything, we know what's going on, we're in the loop, we're not excluded, and the Australian public knows or deserves, as Australians, we deserve to hear what's going on. And should someone get in trouble, get them in trouble, move on. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually have you ever watched Rake with Cleaver Greener when he becomes a politician?
No, I haven't.
Oh, there's this beautiful episode where Rake pretty much loses all his money because he stands up against the banks. And so he's effectively an impoverished politician, but he is allowed an expenditure list kind of thing. And so what he does is he basically goes to other politicians and tries to make up for lost ground of expenditures. And it's really funny how they do it. It's like, oh yes, we went to the Spanish club together, and you and I, we both danced together, and that's why we had to spend $40,000 together for the Spanish.
$40,000 just to dance, man. That must. What are they dancing the last Lago waltz?
Yes. So I just
Kevin
thought
Wilson when we need him.
I thought that was actually really, really funny how politicians can just say, oh, I know you're at that thing. I know you spent $40,000 there because I was there and I was spending another $40,000 with you. So and they go, yep, whatever. So
last thoughts?
Yeah, I think this, like, I don't think I don't think it's enough for just the parties alone to punish the ministers. I don't think it's enough. In fact, I would even say that it opens up the possibility of higher level leaders to exploit their ministers down below. So if you don't do this for me, I will I will get you busted from here. So that's why I think that it shouldn't be up to the parties to decide whether a politician is bad or not. It should be a real criminal offense that has a real criminal punishment next to it. And ironically, other countries have laws that prevent politicians from doing said things. I know the US does. There are other countries like England that also have laws in place to stop bench stacking, and for some reason Australia doesn't. It's just so weird. We should have done this. So I think that it shouldn't be up to the parties to sort out their own mess. There needs to be a third party, like the Supreme Court, to deal with this kind of stuff. What do you think?
I agree with you. Sorry, sorry about that. There was things coming up on my screens here. I was just having another look at that Victoria, the preferred Victorian premier. I was just having a look at it because I was looked at the two parties. I looked at the parties, not the premiers themselves. Now, just for the record, I just want to side up for a second. Daniel Andrews does lead Matthew Guy 45% to 32%, but Daniel Andrews lost 8% in his last set of numbers. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
I think it will swing towards Labor with any.
Well, like my brother said, you've got another 12 months until an actual election, and a lot can happen
Within that 12 months.
in that 12 months. And if you look at, and I don't like to mention America too much, but if you look at Trump's election, everyone thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. They all backed Hillary Clinton. People didn't even vote for Hillary Clinton.
I thought that was hilarious. I remember that election hilariously because I remember the TAB was saying like Donald Trump $99 and Hillary Clinton was like at $1. I was wishing at the time I'd put like $100 on Donald Trump. I would have been a millionaire. I would have been living in the United States by now.
Yeah, you would have. Yeah, but
you remember that?
Yeah, I
remember how
remember
stupid that election was. And all those celebrities are saying like, if Donald Trump was elected president, I'll move to Canada. And I think I can't remember which American, and it was like people took it seriously because people crashed the Canadian immigration server because that. I thought that was Triple M reported that.
I just remember, like there was
that
in
was
the
funny.
paper that literally, I think I still got it actually. That basically it was 3-1 if Trump won, but it was double your money if Clinton won. So, and when he won, no one saw that coming, but when he won, that was like, wow, people were crying and whatever. So that's why I'm going to say, as much as I think that Labor's probably going to win, over the next 12 months, there could be a shift and you don't know. So, I know who I'm going to vote for.
Me too.
But like I said,
you guys can't vote. You guys cannot vote in the US election because you guys are not Americans.
No, we're talking about our
so
own
if there's like 100% of the voters in Australia voting for the American president,
we're talking about our own
election,
our own federal.
Right, okay.
But I do know, but if there was another US election, I'd probably put a couple of dollars on the election, sure.
But anyways, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully within the next coming weeks, we will have you rejoining us. Thank you to our new, viewers, to our new subscribers, current subscribers. If you like what you see, click the subscribe button. There's a bell next to it, and make sure you subscribe to us and let us know what you think. Like the videos, give us lots of comments. We are also on Spotify, so make sure you follow us.
With any luck, I will be here next week because I might have jury duty next week. So with any luck, I might be here. If I'm not, then I won't be here for a couple of weeks.
Exactly. Luck will be a JK,
but let us know what you think. We're also on Spotify, so make sure you follow CatSpace on Spotify. We're on Twitter, twitter.com/CatSpace Podcast. We're on Facebook. Thank you to Leon, thank you to Buckets, and we hope to see you guys within the next couple of weeks with another fun podcast. Until then, enjoy your day. Have a great day. Don't forget to get vaccinated, please. To those who have only gotten their first vax, in Australia, please get your second one now. And to those who are
And your
fully
booster
vaccinated,
next
so
week.
much.
And your boosters let the boosters start next week or in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, after 6 months. But to those who have done it, thank you so much. And let's go Australia. Let's go New South Wales. Until then, bye.
Bye.